Hi, welcome to Leader Feeder. I'm Suzanne here with Kirk Langford, and today on the Leader Feeder, Kirk, I wanted to talk about essential leadership traits for manufacturing supervisors. And because it was Martin Luther King Day last week, I just thought, he, of course, had some great leadership traits.
Yeah.
So to start the conversation off, what do you think are some essential leadership traits?
Yeah. That's a big question, and of course we don't want our episodes to become 3 hours long, so I'm going to have to narrow it down to a couple things. There's probably 3 I'm going to bring up. I think the first 2 are ones that Greg Schinkel, who of course is the president and owner of Unique Training and Development and
Snaps
Frontline
for
Leadership.
Greg.
Snaps for Greg. Yeah, right. He always brings up 2 that he talks to me about, and I think there's really compelling reasons for them. So he always says self-awareness and curiosity are 2 of the best leadership traits you can have. And the reason he says that is self-awareness is this ability to know what you're good at, know what you're not as good at, know what you like, know what you don't like. And it starts there, right? Because being a leader, everybody, when you're, no one's born a leader. I think most leaders tend to be made through their experiences and their education and their exposure and whatnot. And so I think having a self-awareness allows us to go, okay, if I want to be a great leader, I probably need to think about these different things. Where am I now in those different skills? Right? Am I already good at communication? Do I give feedback really well? Do I discuss goals and motivate people really well, or no? And within each one of those, then if I have some self-awareness, then I can go, I'm going to work on that thing. I want to get better at it. Right, so that's the self-awareness piece. Okay. The curiosity piece directly connects to that, because curiosity is the thing that makes us want to get better at something. Simply having the self-awareness of, hey, I'm not very good at managing conflict. If you only have the self-awareness piece, then you just go, yeah, just not good at it. That's just not who I am. I think the curious leader is a leader that goes, I'm not very good at it, but I wonder what I could do to get better. Right? It's that open-mindedness, it's that curiosity. And so coupled with self-awareness, you get a leader that knows what they're good at and knows what they're not so great at, but is always wanting to get better, always wanting to learn. So those are the first 2. The third one that I think really connects to, we can look at managing conflict, we can look at emotional intelligence, I think we can look at providing feedback, we can look at cross-cultural understanding, we can look at 1,000 different other traits, right?
Absolutely.
But I think one thread we see through everything is communication, right? Every day you are communicating with your leaders, or pardon me, as a leader, you are communicating with your team every single day. And so I think it's so important that you maybe not master, but get good at communicating. And communicating isn't just how you communicate. It doesn't mean just how do you tell people stuff. Communication encompasses, for example, how well you listen. Right? Because communication is 2 ways. So how well you listen. Do you ask questions, or do you just talk at people? Do you engage in conversation and dialogue? So I would say self-awareness, curiosity, communication. Those would be my 3.
Those are some great 3. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yes, of course. Like you said, we could have a 3-hour episode probably about all kinds of leadership traits. How would you say communication? I'm going to pinpoint the communication aspect, because I think this is the one that would resonate the most with the question in the teams. How would you say communication as a leadership trait would help you build trust and resilience among your team?
Interesting question. Yeah. So how would it help? How does communication help build trust and resilience? I think communication is important in building trust, because part of communication is not just, again, how you communicate, but it's also what you communicate. So are you communicating the right information at the right time to the right people? Right? Sometimes leaders like to hold on to information. Maybe in some sense it gives them a bit of power and control, or they think it does. In other cases, they think, oh, my team can't handle this. I need to manage the flow of information for them.
Kind of like a micromanager, a little bit, like what you're saying. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. But I think it's becoming good at communication, and how it builds trust is by going, okay, I have to think about, what do I know? Who needs to know it? When do they need to know it? And sort of what amount of information do they need to know? How much do I need to maybe filter or limit or tell them what I know, right? And so I think that's a big piece of communication for leaders is acknowledging that and then communicating sort of effectively or accurately based on that. So that's how one way I would say you would build trust, because they know that when you have information that you should be sharing with them, you will share it with them, and not, oh, am I going to have to go and bug Suzanne for more because she tends to withhold information? No, I know that she's going to come to me proactively, and she's going to share information when she has it. So I think that's really how that connects into building that trust on the team.
Right. Just talking about, that Suzanne is going to bring you, the right information, like you just said. So how does consistency fit into that? I suppose being a leader, you would also have to be very consistent with how you're managing your teams, or am I wrong in saying that consistency a big part of it?
I think consistency is a big part about leadership. I mean, people want their leaders to get better, right? You generally want a leader that recognizes maybe the things they're not so great at and is actively working towards improving.
Right, the curiosity aspect that you mentioned earlier, right?
Exactly. Good connector there. But at the same time, we also want them to be getting better, but we don't want it to feel chaotic, right? If I attend a leadership training, and what I say when I'm delivering our frontline leadership program, I say to the people in the training group, I say, folks, I'm not here to flip everything you do on its head and you become a totally different leader and you go back to your team like you've had some sort of ayahuasca retreat and you're like, I have the answer to leadership, and everything changes overnight. That will scare the heck out of your team.
Of course.
No one wants that.
That's scary. Change is. We talk sometimes about how change can be scary. We would just scare all of our frontline leaders.
And you'd have them go, I don't know what to expect, right? When we're too erratic or frenetic or unpredictable, that's a scary thing for a team member when they're leaders like that. So instead, they'd want you to come back from a leadership training course, for example, and go, I have some cool things that I think are going to help us do even better. Because they know that stuff is still going to be relatively predictable or consistent, but also better than it was before. So I think we're looking for small improvements, but consistency. And so how that relates maybe to communication, for example, might be maybe I have a check-in meeting with my staff every month or something, or I have a team meeting every shift, right? But the team meeting starts to maybe feel stale and it starts to feel a bit disconnected and people start to check out a little bit. I keep that meeting, for example, but I do something in the meetings or I change the meetings so that people get more value out of them. So the consistency is there, but it's getting better. Do you see what I mean? And that's the kind of thing I think you want to focus on, is that's where consistency is important, because it's how people can start to feel a sense of psychological safety and security, predictability and stability.
Oh, great. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. What's also, as you were talking, there's so many things that actually pop into my mind all at once that I feel like I could ask so many questions. But you were talking about, a safe space for people. So, and communication and being able to communicate. So I thought maybe I'd just kind of share this one story, because I worked, of course, for a different company, and I would go talk to my boss maybe about, things that were happening with where I was. And next thing I knew, maybe next week or something, you would hear
murmurs,
little
whispers.
murmurs. And I don't want to say gossip, because I'm not, like, none of the things that but you would hear little murmurs about things. And I started realizing that the things that I was coming to my boss with that I thought were being said in a safe space or something like that, it was kind of getting leaked throughout, and it was not a super great feeling. So just when you kind of brought up like a safe space for your teams, I thought maybe we could just I just thought I could bring up a bit about how that had happened to me, and maybe it's happened to someone else. So for leaders to be aware, I kind of thought that also tied back into your first point of being, self-aware as to how you're treating, your employees.
I think, so thanks for sharing that story. Yeah, that's not a good feeling when you're going to your leader, saying something in confidence, hoping that there's some, you have the confidence to go up and say some feedback or, give a suggestion, to then find that everybody's talking about it, and not in a way that it was, I shared it with the team because it was a great idea, but more of it got leaked, like you said. That doesn't feel good.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that I think if you want to create a space with good psychological safety, it means you've created a space where people feel like they can come to you with their ideas, their feedback, their suggestions, even if they're not great, but they're not going to be ridiculed. They're not going to be told, that's a stupid idea. But I also think, like you said, it's the sense of, if I tell you something, it's going to be kept in confidence, if it needs to be.
If it needs to be, of course. If it was an idea that
if it's a great idea,
we should go talk to someone about this.
Yeah, but then there's a proper way to bring it to the team. There's a proper way to say, hey, Suzanne's come up with this awesome idea. So you're right. in talking about that self-awareness, it's asking yourself, am I someone that doesn't really take that very seriously at the moment, that sort of maybe confidentiality or creating that safe space for my people to come to me with stuff and to tell me stuff? I also think you asked about building trust, right? And I think building trust, you have to be able to, or rather one of the ways that you build trust is through having people tell you stuff, and it stays with you, or it only goes to the other people it needs to go to. So maybe it's HR, maybe it's, whoever else it needs to be told. So yeah, I do think there's a big piece of communication, which is, well, we talked about, saying the right thing to the right people at the right time. Well, if someone tells you something, you have to ask, who's the right person to tell this to? Maybe it's no one. Maybe it's, hey, I appreciate your feedback and suggestions. I'm going to think about it. And in the meantime, no one else that maybe shouldn't be getting out, for example.
Absolutely.
No.
Well, thanks, Kirk. It was a great conversation today. And I mean, yes, we could have talked so much about, different leadership traits.
This could be a 10-part series, right?
Of course. I mean... it could be a 10-part.
Yeah.
You just hit me with something. I thought maybe it should be a 10-part series. Keep in mind, this could be a 10-part series. Thank you for joining us today on the Leader Feeder. I hope you have a great day. Bye.